Yesterday's conspiracy theories, tomorrow's headlines. Most are still asleep and I ain't talking about no bedtime. The truth is not a Google search, you need to get your head right. The Greek goddess of illusion was called Media, and I'm not a coincidence theorist, I look for thread lines. Smashing every deadline, no longer smashing red wine. Though I can hear the bells chime, it feels like the end times. That probably should have been smashed on red wine, but the carnal mind is foolish. Obey and end up ghoulish. Don't get used by instinct, take control and learn to use it. Make a load of earnest music, earn a few quid, learn a few tricks. Sure, the truth is persecuted, this whole world is pure abusive. Know a bit about everything and everything about nothing. Figured out my noggin while you picture out shopping. You sit about watching while I dish it out, stop it. I don't mean to sound cocky, I'm not even proud of it. It's a second itch to me just to me to sound honest. I don't even need to sound honest, never been about profit. Everything but out on it, you can bet your house on it. Doubt I'll be out for the count when the sounds, and I'm down for the beat, no beat down. I mean, how long's it been? Help me out. I've been the only one who's held me down. All in the mind, hell freeze now. Still sick with it, healthy how? Few bars down and the world freaked out. I don't reach out, I seek out to speak out. I'ma recount the reasons they beat out. I'm not the way, no way. I have seen the way. Yeah. Speak, repeat, there's no way.
Hello. Welcome, everybody, to the 509 Divine Pines podcast. I am your host, Joseph Daniel Pena, and it is February 15th, 2024. And all of you guys just had your Valentine's destinations unlocked and all of your cute little chocolate presentations. Yes. With this tonight, we're going to go ahead and time travel. And yes. What I want you guys to do is like, subscribe, share, and tell everybody around that this is going down. This is streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Rumble, and we'll be out by the morning or the next morning on Spotify. Click any links that you want to go ahead and check out on all of our socials, and donate if you could, and if you would, be nice, because that's what we do around here. We support each other, right? If you would go do that. Now, tonight we have on Christelle Lujan, and she is the time travel novels, The Luxury of Time Travel, and the Origins of Time Travel. She is currently working on a dystopian novel that looks a couple decades into the future, or like a couple years from now, am I right? Where a technocratic system has taken over the U.S. and a majority of the population lives in smart cities under mind control, except for a few who remain on the outside, the Wildlanders. She is also a mother of 5 who lives on a homestead with her husband and works in the publishing industry. She describes her work as science fiction with a soft center and believes all conspiracy. You can check her out at Twitter and Instagram, and she also has a website, so you can go ahead and .com and
Hi, thanks for having me.
how's everything going? How's life?
It's great. I'm doing great over here. I'm like rallying after a day with 5 kids at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like finding my inner energy here.
Okay, so you're over there in Arizona, craziness by the border, or no? It's a whole bunch of propaganda, huh? That's what I hear.
You know what? I'm born and raised in Arizona, and I can honestly say that I see absolutely not 1 ounce from where I'm at. I'm not near the border. I'm probably about 2 or 3 hours from the border, but I can honestly say that I haven't seen a single change in my town or in my life. I don't spend a lot of time in Phoenix and the major cities. But I can honestly say that I haven't seen a change here. I don't think that means that nothing's happening, but it hasn't impacted my area directly at all.
Okay, yeah. I just had seen a post online. I don't know if there's any extreme truth to it. It might have just been a stretched truth, but in Phoenix there was a lot of migrants taking over a lot of the blocks. It just suddenly started pouring in, and just caravanning into Phoenix, and
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
it's
saying it
taken
isn't
over quite a bit
happening. I'm just
because, like, well, I mean, this kind of leads into where we're headed. This 15-minute city, these smart cities, you know, under
yeah.
major control. They're doing this. The elites are
Well,
doing
I
this
think
on
they're trying to
purpose,
make
and
city
yeah,
living.
yeah. Guys, tonight's conversation is going to be great. It is. Okay. Christelle Lujan really likes dystopian futures, smart cities, AI, time travel, truth, and uh, you know, science fiction, quote unquote, right? You know what I mean? And that's what my podcast has been dealing with and talking about for 2 years now. And this is going to be so. Christelle, tell them like a little bit about yourself that I didn't already. If there's anything more that you can say, and anywhere else that they can find you, anything that that you want to introduce yourself as, that I might have missed.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. I really appreciate you having me on. Like you said, I am an author and I started out just writing books that I thought were entirely coming from my imagination and that were coming from my own stream of consciousness. And the more research I did around my science fiction books, the more I realized I wasn't writing science fiction at all. That a lot of what my books contain are actually reflective of things that are happening in the real world, high strangeness, conspiracy. Like there's a ton, obviously, science fiction more than any other genre has a ton of overlap with sort of the alternative culture and news. And so I already sort of loved that. And so I combined my interest in any kind of weird and alternative news with the content of my books. And I honestly don't think you can write science fiction without having an understanding of this. And if you are, then it's probably not very good science fiction, because let's face it, everything from aliens to time travel, like that's this space. And I love this space. And so I just try to combine that with my creative endeavors, and it makes the research process really fun and enjoyable. But yeah, so
Okay.
we
Okay.
have
For everybody out there, they might not be as deep as us. So let's go ahead and give them a quick rundown. Told them many of times on my broadcast how I've came to this, just whole bunch of craziness in my life. I hope that you didn't have all that craziness like I did, but just let yourself, you know, say, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess if you're gonna call it like I would like to say that my awakening kind of happened in phases. And so the first time that I really started to just kind of question the world around me is during the birth of my first son. Without getting into the very long story of it, it was a really difficult birth. It was a really poorly medicalized birth. And it was the first time my grandfather's a doctor. And so I was raised like, you trust doctors, you trust the medical system, you go in and you say yes. And my first birth was really horrible as a result of that mentality. And so the very first layer to go for me was like trust in the medical industrial complex. And I started to kind of go down that rabbit hole first, realizing that, that was the first kind of like establishment that fell for me. And then, it just kind of escalates from there. You have one area where you start to question whatever the mainstream talking points are, and once one brick falls, they kind of all start to fall at once. And so once I started to see, the blinders drop on the medical complex, that obviously changed how I experienced 2020 compared to how a lot of other people experienced 2020. And in the midst of that, I was writing my books, and my books are based around psychics and time travel. And that gets you into an entirely different kind of metaphysical side of the conversation. And then, I'm totally that mom who I don't go to a traditional doctor. Like, my kids get cold, wet socks when they're sick, not Tylenol, and we live on a homestead, and we eat all organic. We have a garden. We make sourdough. We have chickens that we raise for meat. We literally bought a pig and put it in a dog kennel and brought it home during our first month owning our homestead. So we're the kind of people who kind of go all in on that side. And, I don't think there's a conspiracy out there that I haven't at least heard a lot on and read. Like, I'm not afraid to read anything. That doesn't mean I buy every single thing that comes across my feed, but I think that if you're if you want to know the truth, you have to listen to everything and then kind of decide for yourself.
Yeah, honestly, I'm up here in Washington State, and I'm in farmland, and so like I'm not a farmsteader, and I don't have my own farm, but I'm around it everywhere. There's cows, there's agriculture, there's all sorts of it's everywhere. It's the lifestyle. It's an agriculture county, and it's a beautiful thing to have that around. Fresh fruits and vegetables, fresh produce, fresh meat, fresh eggs. Because you look around the world and like fresh food. You know, I've recently heard things like organic farming is bad from the mainstream. I've heard things like don't eat meat because you're supporting cow farts and climate change, and you're killing by one hamburger, right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is absolutely ridiculous. So that right there is like a win. Having your own land to go ahead and like thrive on. That's a win. That's my dream. I really want to work for that. But the medical industry itself is pretty toxic. Like for me, I always had a dying itch in my about it. Like I was just wondering, like there seems something wrong about it. It doesn't seem like they're really tackling the problems. Like for most of my life, I was thinking that, and then recently, over the last I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 years specifically, I started really understanding this on a deeper level. I guess ever since I came out of the military for chemical analysis. I got kicked out for smoking weed, but I learned a lot in the freaking time. I learned too much. Which made me smoke weed. I was like, I have to chill. This is bullshit. And so I came back and I started realizing all the toxins and poisons. And I really appreciate organic farming. So just that alone, you guys gotta understand, like the food that we eat is very important. So that can heal us. That can like make us like actually be creative. It gives us all the actual juices that we need to be strong, to be wise, makes our brain flow, our skin glow, and uh with of I guess the paranormal too, like being able to time travel and look at what's happening with per se the global elite and the dominance they want to go ahead and instill for a dystopian future. Because a lot of people they get trapped in a box with the same old foods, and it's very toxic. It's degrading to their brain. And I'm glad that you can shine some light at, I'm glad that you had said that right there. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Psychic abilities and researching psychic abilities for your first book. How did you go ahead and get into the luxury of time travel and the origins of time travel, if you could, for everyone?
Yeah, so I've always had kind of a minor obsession with psychic ability anyways. I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you're old enough to have ever watched Montel Williams when he was on TV, but he used to always have this like it was a daytime talk show and he always had this psychic named Sylvia Brown on there and she was just this kind of like wild caricature of a psychic, but I can remember just being fascinated every time she was on. You know, she was one of those that would like pick people out of the audience and tell them that their dead family members were there and try and relay a message to them. And like, I can remember that obsession. And my parents bought me her books. And I was reading like Edgar Casey when I was a teenager. And so I was super interested in the subject matter. And I've always felt like I had some intuitive ability myself, although it's taken a lot longer for me to kind of come to terms with that. I always, you know, for a long time, just kind of chalked it up to coincidence, but it's always been an area where I've just kind of been drawn to. And the idea for this book actually came to me in a dream, which I also feel is kind of psychically aligned. There's something about dream state and dream matter that for whatever reason seems to have overlap, right? Like there's dimensionality to both of those characteristics. And so I started writing this book without any real foundational research, more of just an obsession around psychic ability. And as I wrote it and started to pull it together, I came upon this podcast where Mark Gober was talking about his book, The End to Upside Down Thinking. And he really talks about consciousness and that kind of got my brain working. And so this book is really an exploration of consciousness. And that, in my opinion, if time travel was real, the way it would operate is through our own consciousness, and that it would be through tapping into our own memories, through sort of, you know, turning the dial all the way up on psychic ability. Like if we could transport our consciousness from the past into our body in the future or into the body of another person, that would be the way time travel would actually work. And so I kind of built this story around that idea.
If we're looking at how old I am, I'm 30, surprisingly.
Okay.
Everyone asks that. I look, you know, I don't know, somewhere in my 20s for sure. But I have not watched that show. There is another show that comes across my mind, which is The Men Who Stare at Goats, and how that was based on a real military project. And I had on a guest, Eric Hecker, before, who talked about the operation at, or project. I think it's operations, and it's pretty wild that how much the military and government and how much other cultures around the world started taking these subjects. You know, when you look into books and you look into beliefs, you know, and just before the show, I told you about like my occurrence where I had like started watching some shows and started you know, realizing that maybe the time travel is real. Wrote down on a piece of paper, if future me is here and alive, or if future me exists, come back and save me. And ever since then, I started having some very interesting experiences, mind opening, like life changing. And you know, there's also like the show that I was watching at the time was called Travelers, and it's about like a future AI that, you know, is trying to save the world. So there's a time and point where people can upload their consciousness to chips, which pretty much seems like right now. And the super AI is reading all of time and space and back the consciousness is into people, because it's learning how to tap into it and learning how to use the technology. What It's very interesting where people have near death experiences. The AI sends back another soul from the future into that person, and like, you know, they the conspiracy or spiritual community or alien community sometimes calls it a walk-in, but I think that maybe there's more to it, and I think that maybe it's not just that. It's like it could be, you know, like a relink from our own spirit, our own consciousness. If we're tied to a ethereal cord, like every culture exists, or a lot of cultures around the world, thinks that we are like a spiritual cord up to the heavens, and sometimes that gets dimmed, and sometimes that gets thrown off, but and sometimes a connection fully isn't there with the higher realm. I mean, it could go up, but it's not receiving the blessing from the connecting higher realm, like heaven, right? And then a near death experience happens, and we get into it.
Well,
So
I mean, like, who are we to
that's
say?
a
Yeah,
good brief explanation. Like, oh, sorry,
yeah, I was just
go
gonna
on.
say, like, how do we know that, like, intuition or deciding not to go to a party that you were gonna go to, or deciding to answer the phone and it's someone who really matters to you? Who's to say that those, like, inklings aren't a future version of ourselves, kind of informing our decisions in the present?
Split into a connecting thread, like all of our dimensions are connected, and our world is like connected by a thread to the timeline of the universe, right? So the multiple dimension theory, which leads me into more of like what and more of these topics, is the multiverse, right? Like how Spider-Man Into the Multiverse explains it. I watched that, and that really set me and made me understand that these elites, the rich people, they're 3 steps ahead of us with the science and with the understanding about these things. So what they're kind of putting in these movies is not just science fiction. This is I like to think like a documentary. where,
Yeah.
where where do you stand as far as like how much of reality do you think is currently experienced? Do you think just a little bit of people understand this, as far as like, because I do really starts time traveling, or like really has these abilities. What do you think?
So I feel like there's a lot more people starting to kind of question the nature of our reality. And I think that everybody is capable of some of these sort of higher concept abilities, whether it be like interdimensional travel or astral projection or psychic ability or telepathy. Like, I think all of these things have taken a hold of science fiction because there's a real fundamental truth to them. I think that I think that humans have serious supernatural abilities. I think if you look at anything from like a monk who spends most of their life in meditation to Wim Hof breathing, or any of these things that allows, even in mushrooms, like things that allow people to access this other state of consciousness, is just like a window into what we as humans are supposed to be able to do all the time. And that because of all of the things that weigh down the human experience, from the financial system to big pharma to the terrible food we eat to the horrible like ways in which we get distracted by social media and TV and news and catastrophe, like all of these things seem to be these giant weights that hold down the abilities that we're all supposed to naturally have. And that's a huge theme in my books, is that I think that humans are superheroes in a lot of ways, and that our abilities are vast, and that when you see sort of these anomalous occurrences, that they're not really anomalous. They're just, most of us are just living in such a state of anxiety and exhaustion all the time that we don't get to explore our true nature.
So with that, go ahead and tell everybody, like, you know quick, maybe not so quick. You go ahead and explain about your first book, and so that what can they expect, and like you're talking about some of these topics. Is it you know what type of lifestyle might someone expect that in the book, or how is it?
Yeah, are you kind of asking like
And about the story of the book.
Yeah, so the book
Just
starts
to, yeah,
out.
just for the viewers, and then you can give them like
Yeah, I'm happy to like summarize the book a little bit. So the story starts out with a young woman who her mother is psychic. She has kind of this budding psychic ability, and she overlaps with this young man who is a scientist who's kind of exploring um, sort of behavioral modification science because of a tragedy that happened in his family. And the two of them converge and basically create this occurrence of time travel accidentally, and a huge tragedy erupts from that. And then 10 years later, they both find themselves in an Arizona commune dedicated to making time travel available globally. And so it's kind of headed up by this sort of elite billionaire sort of guy who's funding this project. And they're working with scientists and psychics and mechanics to basically figure out the realm of time travel, which they eventually do. And just as our two main characters are kind of finding some steadiness in their presence, the effects of discovering time travel hit them, and they get thrown into an alternate reality where they're not together, and they kind of have to navigate this creation that they've made in order to find their way back to each other. So there is sort of a love story dynamic to it, but it's also a very heavy like exploration of the choices we make, the memories we keep, and how consciousness is non-linear, and that we can access really our own versions of ourselves at any point in our life, and try and go back and fix the mistakes we've made in the past, and try and shape our future in a way that hopefully is for the better.
For all you nerds out there, it's Valentine's Day. I know I don't really celebrate it because it's like a pagan god lubricus, but yeah, for all you lovers out there, go ahead, get this romance novel. People like to time travel and all of this. I think that there's a lot of truth to how we can astral project, and we can tap into our consciousness. As you said, we can tap into this energy, whether it's our spirit. Simon Hine likes to think that there's a 0 point energy that Bigfoots can tap into to kind of traverse through dimensions. I understand that some people think that we are in multiple universes, like Spider-Man multiverse. We can literally talk one for everybody out there, and I think that there's really great divine abilities that even the Bible states, where God grants us with these divine abilities that we were given because we were born in His image, and there's some very fascinating abilities we have. I understand people get scared of psychic abilities and clairvoyance or telepathy, or some of these other things like telekinesis, or being able to douse and like find metal. And so like there's different things, abilities that people have. Like it, they're just born with them, right? And getting into our consciousness, whether rooms or some other type of workout or peaceful I don't know. You can even go on a mountain hike and experience this bliss that gets you in the right mind state. People like to think that as long as you get into the right vibration with your chakras, you can get into these mind states, right? And really tap into different realms, because elves or people just experiencing angelic natures when they pray very hard, that there's something that we're interacting with at all times. And that something is a split where it's multiple dimensions, and there's other dimensional entities and other these other dimensional existences. And shutting out that idea or that whole concept shuts out part of our reality, and people get stale. People get trapped inside the box and don't know how to tap into our surroundings, our environment, or themselves. And so
Sometimes I think too.
mission and all of these topics are very real. They unlock you guys. I'll be real. I didn't feel connected to my dreams and my goals until I started understanding this and try to like read out the future. And I guess that can go into like your next. Let's go ahead and talk about like what's your idea about some of these movies that are discussing let's just say time travel. You have a few different shows
Yeah, so
that
there's
you might go ahead and
yeah, so I tend to like actually not be a fan of a lot of the sort of mainstream time travel movies and shows. Although I do, I mean, I enjoy them from an entertainment standpoint, but in terms of like what I really like in sci-fi is when I feel like they're unlocking something that was difficult to realize sort of in our real world. And so when I look at some of the best modern science fiction right now, like I love Interstellar and the play on basically the fact that like love is sort of this compass for consciousness and for sending messages out across the universe. And I actually feel like even though Arrival is really more like a first contact story, Arrival is also a time travel story where you witness the main character's consciousness. Once the aliens unlock something in her through language, she's able to time travel her consciousness elsewhere and basically save the world by. And so I would say that that's probably maybe as close of an overlap as there is in my story as what happens in Arrival. But if I'm picking my absolute favorite show of the last 10 years that does this the best, it would be the OA on Netflix. And this one has a ton to do with NDEs, a ton to do with alternate dimensions. And there's some, I'll annoy anybody who's willing to sit and talk to me about the OA forever because it is my favorite show. And I feel like there's some really, really deep truth within the messaging in that show. And there is, when you watch it, I know that just recently it kind of had a resurgence because it only went 2 seasons, got canceled after 2 seasons, even though it was supposed to be 5. And but there's something that happens when you watch that show where like people are like, it's a shamanic experience just to see this show. And it really is, like, it totally gets you thinking differently about consciousness and other realities. And so I think if you're trying to sort of expand how far you're willing to think reality goes, like those are a few that really do a good job turning a key.
just to name another few, there's The Man in the High Castle. I talk about that a lot, where it goes and talks about how the Nazis won the war, and they were working on these devices to go ahead and travel into multiple dimensions or universes and time travel, or it's very interesting, right? And then there's another one, Timeless. It was actually canceled after the second season because very realistic and what might be happening with the elites, where there's this family. It's like Rockefeller or something like that, right? And they're working on time travel. They eventually start getting close, and then they make the government, make the CIA and all that stuff, and they master it. They get time travel, but then the creator creates a second one, and well, guess what? It's one team is good, and they take that one, and one team is bad, and they go and try to destroy reality. So the good team is always trying to go backwards and trying to save reality, and
I mean, let's be honest.
it's a good one. You should watch it. Truth to these two, I mean, the way I think that, and the way I kind of actually see it, is that these directors and these big time money funders, let's just say like the film agencies, Paramount or whatever, you know they have a lot of esoteric and secret knowledge that, like, they're family members with the elites, and they go to like the closed museums, and they go and check you know forbidden, and they have all of the highest paid for stuff, and they get access to like archaeological sites first, and like close it off with military personnel. So they have a lot of truth in these movies because like they have access. We hear about it all the time, like, oh yeah, the military or Hollywood was able to rent out this place and privately secure it, and just it's like, well, all right, that's pretty strange. And how long were they there? Oh, they were there for weeks, and it's like, oh, okay, well, what were they doing? Yeah, these guys, a lot of this, because I mean, you even see it in some of these. There's a lot of deep underground military bases that are shown in these shows that we don't ever get access to ever. Get into it. When we look at like more of these parallel universes, how might that be affecting us today? What do you think, like, and time, what do you think, like, as far as what's going on today in our reality? Do you think that there is some aspect that our government, or like our world is currently experiencing this, as far as because people like to hear people like to think about the Mandela effect, right? Do you kind of subscribe to that, that Mandela effect might be a result of this parallel universes, or people messing with?
Yeah, so I'm always kind of torn between whether the Mandela effect is something that happened where timelines merged as a result of the Large Hadron Collider being turned on, or if it's done in sort of a more like on this plane sort of way, where they're very intentionally messing with us to see like how much they can tweak reality without people knowing. And so I'm never 100% ready to commit to, oh, I'm from this timeline where, it's Berenstain Bears, and you're from this timeline where Curious George has no tail. I tend to keep it a little bit more on this plane when it comes to the Mandela effect, because I think they just like to kind of seed wrong ideas all the time to see what sticks and to see how many people they can convince of things. And it's almost like I almost think it's like a litmus test for your ability to like hold on to what you know to be true when in the face of being lied to, And so I I think there's some weird stuff going on with CERN, and I've talked about CERN in like a couple of my TikTok videos and stuff like that. Like, there is no doubt crazy shit happening at CERN. But I also think that the Mandela effect and like the level of popularity it's hit, to me, it's like a mind control project on the world, or at least on America, to be like, how much can we shift the Overton window, and how much can we deceive you and you'll still buy it, even on these tiny, like these small scale things, because we see it happen in large scale things where we know, they change the definitions of words. right in front of our faces, and we can see it happen. And so I think that it's just this constant ongoing experiment of like, just how much can we shift reality without too much uproar.
In the 90s,
Say that one more time.
do you remember Nelson Mandela dying in the 90s?
You know what? I didn't have any memory of Nelson Mandela like when I like there is apparently not something that crossed my 90s brain, because it like as like I definitely am much more versed when you're talking about like the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia and stuff like that. I don't remember what I knew of Mandela as a kid.
Right,
To
the
be
the
perfectly honest.
cornucopia. Actually, you shocked me when you said that Curious George had no tail. I couldn't believe it.
There's like always
Okay,
new
no,
ones.
well, there's also this other aspect where there's another aspect to this though, where the Japanese like to think that the Japanese culture, ancient Japanese culture, like to think that there's angels who are kind of related to like sirens who are these very manipulating dark spirits. What's your thought on that? That this could be well, okay, look, when we're talking about CERN summoning dark spirits, they're doing crazy rituals to Shiva. They have all sorts of ties to all these occultists, right? For lack of better words. And so they're dealing with spirits. And if we actually understand the way ghost hunters look at ghosts and the way that ancient cultures looked at angels and demons, and they can do things, we just can't see them, right? So like, for some of the aspect where things are being changed, I do think, yeah, I'm with you. Like, I don't think that everything that is being changed is from time travel. I do think that it is. I don't know. From what I heard, Nelson Mandela has already died 3 times, and I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm not even gonna buy Fruit of the Loom. That's witchcraft. Yo,
I hear ya. I don't know. They
okay.
seem to believe
Like,
in these trickster gods and these, gods of destruction. And so it's like anytime something as globally recognized as CERN is worshiping gods and occult figures and stuff like that, like you have to pay it some attention. You have to care a little bit. You can't dismiss it all. And so I don't know what it is that they are doing there. And but sometimes I think something like the Mandela effect is almost like a smoke screen, because it's like, I think that whatever they actually are doing is probably so much worse and so much bigger that we can barely even conceive of what that is. Like, change how Fruit Loops is spelled all you want, but like, I want to know, did we avert disaster or did they create disaster? And I think that whatever's going on there is much more interesting than changing brand logos.
I'll be there. Theory recently, like, I have a tough, very very tough time understanding or believing what happened between 1900 to 1940, maybe 1950. So, everything from World War I to the Philadelphia experiment, World War II is very questionable as far as how deep they went. There was a lot of talks, right? How Hitler and all them, they found the bell for this UFO, which could also time travel. Well, like, it gets very weird where people think that there's, I've heard of these things where or people's theories where those went off or something happened where there was already complete destruction. And what we've been seeing is like a repopulation, reseeding, whether it be through the orphan trains or whether it be through the UFOs, and like realizing that a lot of our cities are rebuilt over already constructed cities that were bombed, all and bombed, set on fire, destroyed, all of the infrastructure literally built over. America's built over a second city, right? And probably all around the world. There's that theory, right? It's pretty tough to realize, like, m- you know manipulation. It's going like even to the point right now where we're seeing is where we're Wikipedia trying to rewrite history. We're seeing the government trying to rewrite history literally before our own eyes. And this isn't just new, but like when we think about what they're worshiping over at CERN, it's some ancient fallen angel type of stuff. These ancient like demons, devils, literally. It's very, very dark. And if we even take a glance at what the Sumerian tablets and some of these other cultures said about the technology that they had, like the technology that they had by far surpasses any technology that we have right now. I mean, we know that some of these in Vermont, like which were UFOs from back in the day, like these, uh, uh, like Mandela affect us every day if they wanted to. They have the ability to like clone and repopulate the world, and that if they wanted to. And not just that, but if they wanted to put us into like this matrix or multiple dimension, yeah, the matrix, it's very possible too. What's your idea on the matrix? I know that you had mentioned that on your page.
Yeah,
Do you
I
think
mean,
that for everybody out there, like the matrix is probably a lot more realistic than we think, right?
I think it's hard not to feel like we're already living in a matrix. And I don't even necessarily mean that from a simulation theory standpoint, which I also think is always super interesting to explore when you're thinking about reality and the different dimensions. But already we kind of have this like layer of false reality on top of our own reality. And like we're not quite in the matrix where it's like we can't see it, because we can see it. We can see that when we log on to social media, that's a different reality than when you're walking down the street, and I think that we're not only does it represent, kind of like where we could be headed in the future, but I do think it's where we're already existing, where so much of our reality is constructed and manufactured around us in a way that doesn't actually represent the real world. I think a ton of us were in a similar position where, during 2020, you like see what you see on social media, you hear what you hear on the news, and then you walk out your door and you don't see that, you don't experience that. And so many of us were like, if we just threw our screens away, we'd be living in a totally different world than what we're being told is reality. And so the Matrix is kind of both a metaphor and a prophecy and, this like Gnostic tale all in one. And I think it works really well for any time we want to understand what kind of reality that we're living in. And, we very well could be in the Matrix. There's absolutely zero way for us to tell. But either way, like you kind of have to cement yourself in as close to reality as you can possibly get. While all of these other forces are looking to construct what is real around you and tell you what is real. And, what I try to do through my storytelling and even just through like raising my own kids is just really coming up with a foundation of like what we know is true and real. And I think everybody has to do that, because especially as we are moving into this AI era where deep fakes are going to be absolutely impossible to detect, and where virtual reality is coming along, augmented reality, like you already see these like dorks with their freaking VR goggles on and stuff. And it's like we are just a few hop skips and away of not being able to tell the difference between the world we're in right now and the world that's being constructed for us.
And this is definitely in what we manifest, but also yes, the entities above us, like the Matrix. In my opinion, I think that there is like this truth to it, where I don't know, the quickest way my brain understood it right now is that, like, when we start believing in God, it's really interesting where, you know, it's almost seeming like automatic, sometimes, like it just seems like just suddenly all this dark attention from people's spirits within, or the system itself just comes for you, and you can liberate yourself. Definitely you can tap into that zero point, or that consciousness, kind of astral project, and learn some things, and learn how to manage your path. And you know that's something that these other entities out there, let's say God too, want to do inside of us, like Inception. To reverse it, you know Inception, they're trying to get people are trying to get inside a mind, or inside a soul, right? Like that's the way the
Mhm.
dark spirits like to see it. They're trying to get deeper inside of you, and it's also the same thing. Maybe how about this, in some essence, the light spirits want to protect, though. It's a very dualistic sense. And well, right now, a lot of people need these ideas, because people have been seeking ever since 2020. I think that it's opened up, you know, um, I don't know, a rift in reality, like a ripple inside the consciousness of, the world. I know that cultures and theoreticists like to think that there's this akashic realm, this ethereal realm, this conscious realm that floats, like, right in between Earth, on this electric, this invisible electric realm that floats, like the oxygen layer, right? And
Mhm.
everybody's thoughts are co-collectively, increasing, maybe going more sporadic, but also with the intel of trying to seek out for these topics, because we're realizing that every little thing that we do, but there's also these other entities around who want to change that for us, and we're really going into, you know our we matter, right? We have this huge role in the universe, and what we say, what we do, matters, and what we think around for our family, as far as like their future being good. Who knows how we can affect a time travel, right? Like, I know that I've affected people, because with these topics, in a very positive way, where I've seen their lives change and them open up, to new conversations that they would have never opened up to. And they completely 180 their life, like, went from depression to happiness. And if okay, I you in the notes, you had given me a show, Stranger Things, and personally, I think that might be one of the most important. there's this there's this energy, this darkness, that the mainstream Hollywood or the mainstream medical industry wants to instill through you, through medicine or music or anything else that they could. And it's affecting people big time.
Mhm.
The world is definitely going mad, and they're not understanding this darkness that's below them. Um, what led you into thinking, about, or what can you say about Stranger Things, and then, like, how that might, you know, how that might be realistic in some sense. I personally know that it's a huge military operation, Project Montauk.
Yeah.
Like, this stuff is real, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, Stranger
But in
Things
your
was
opinion,
called
how can you say?
Yeah, Stranger Things was called Montauk to begin with. And so it's a tremendous, like, the first season is a humongous expose on MK Ultra. And so I think with Stranger Things and with a lot of other really great sci-fi shows that start out really great and kind of lose their footing a little bit, which I love Stranger Things, but I do feel like it loses its footing over the next few seasons. But I think, like me, a lot of them start out trying to tell a very true story or trying to connect people to some very real conspiracy. Like you look at the X-Files, things like that are really talking about things that actually happened and bringing awareness. And, when I went back and watched Stranger Things, the first time I watched it, I had no idea what MK Ultra was. The second time I watched it, they literally say MK Ultra in Stranger Things, and it totally passed my radar the first time. But once I knew what it was and knew what I was looking at, that's what the whole first show is about. And so I think science fiction has the ability to do 3 or 4 things. It can be predictive programming. So it's designed, what predictive programming is. It's designed to make us basically soft to whatever it is they're bringing next. I think it also has the ability to manifest reality, that, you look at something like the Hunger Games and the way people behave in the Capitol, and then you can never watch something like the Met Gala the same way ever again. Like it basically is the Capitol and it's just manifested itself into reality. And then I think it also has the ability to be prophetic. And I think that oftentimes when you are telling a story, you are doing some sort of channeling, some sort of intuiting through storytelling. And so when I went back and reread The Handmaid's Tale, one of the things she talks about in it, and this book was written in the 80s, is the way in which they were able to take over the American government was basically through CBDC. And Margaret Atwood was talking about this in 1980. Like, that's just prophecy right there. I don't care what anybody has to say about it. And so, and then the other part of science fiction is just research really well done. And Stranger Things, at least the very first season, is just research really well done with some cool, fantastical elements layered on top. And so anytime we're looking at science fiction, we have to be picking it apart from those 4 different corners. Are they trying to manipulate us with this? Are they trying to tell us a piece of history or some sort of hidden secret with this? Did this author write this from a place of just sort of stream of consciousness and pull something from source, from God, from the universe into reality through entertainment? Or is this just really well researched in sort of the same way that, if we're looking at a really real, well-researched piece, like The Handmaid's Tale applies there too, because Margaret Atwood has said that she didn't write about anything that wasn't happening somewhere else in the world at some point in history, And so with Stranger Things, I think that first season that they were very intent on telling the story of Montauk, on telling the story of MK Ultra. And then it got more popular than anyone could have anticipated. And I think they got yanked into the back room. They're like, whoa. Like, you can't tell the people that much truth. And so I think what we got in the subsequent series was a little bit more watered down. But what you get in that first series, that is just like the MK Ultra story, just right #1 TV show on Netflix.
I definitely do believe that Stranger Things and a lot of the other shows, yeah, they're revealing the military projects over and over again. And this is all leading to what people like to think is headed towards a dystopian future. If we're looking at what the Leave the World Behind was trying to entail, like there's some things that could easily shift our world. There's under the underlying darkness that's causing it, but the overlaying is that these elites want to go ahead and push us into this craziness, this cyberpunk type future, and this transhuman 1984 Brave New World type future. And that would be leading into your new book. But first, I guess, if you could, what might they expect in your second book? Is it more of this more of the same? Is it kind of if you would give them a maybe quick 30-second, 1 minute little understanding, and then we'll come back right back to like, I guess we can lead it right into the dystopian. You know, after you explain this book, we can start opening this
Yeah.
up to the rest of.
Yeah, so my second book, The Origins of Time Travel, is the prequel to my first novel, and so it is very much a similar story. It goes back to, it's still very much wrapped in the psychic ability. The difference in that one is it's a little bit less of a romance and a little bit more of a murder mystery. And so those two are a duology, so they kind of exist in the same universe. So the book that I actually just finished writing this week is a dystopia. And so to kind of like hit on a few things you were saying with dystopias, for one, I think anybody who's probably very senior right now thinks we're already living in a dystopia. So it's really easy to kind of fantasize about the dystopia that's coming and miss the dystopia that we're already in. And so from, people who never look up from their phones to the horrible way in which we treat the environment, treat families, treat, each other, the wars that we wage just in perpetuity, sort of just the general way in which we operate in modern times. I think at basically any other point in history would have looked dystopian as well. I think it's also easy to kind of romanticize the dystopias and miss the reality that like dystopias happen over and over and over again. And so it doesn't have to look like Walking Dead. It doesn't have to look like scorched earth, end of days sort of stuff that like a dystopia is living through World War II, is living through, some of these horrific moments throughout our history. And yet people still go on. And so in the book that I was writing, I kind of wanted to take the things that we're looking at right now is like the future dystopia, which is, AI takeovers, smart city, technocrats, all of these things, and kind of look at that as a mom who has 5 kids and say, like, is there a future where all of this happens and yet still my children find a way to live and love and be human? And so through this new story, it was kind of like a love letter to my kids. It was kind of a like reassurance to myself in some way that even if the things we're looking at now go as far as we think that they're going to go, like, is there still a place where humanity survives? And through storytelling, like, we need to be able to tell better stories about the dystopia to come. Like, we can't have just like Terminator and Leave the World Behind and these sort of shows as like our only guiding narratives for what's coming next, because that is just hopeless. And so what I tried to do with this story is acknowledge that, yes, like AI is a scary potential reality because the people who control AI have so much rot in the system already that the last thing we want to do is like hand them this like nuclear technological power, but they have it. We have Neuralink out there as a potential future where they're just gonna just beam right into our brains and control us from there. And who needs propaganda and predictive programming and all of this stuff when they can just enter right into your brain directly. And then with smart cities, like, it's one thing if we're living in some sort of voluntary community where everybody's there by choice. It's an entirely different thing if we're living in a surveillance state that has these harsh rules and restrictions where nobody's allowed to leave and every move you make is quantified into a credit. And so I just kind of took those very realistic futures and juxtapose it against people who would try to live outside of that society, which I'd like to think I'm raising kids who would reject that future. And what if, completely detached from reality, they develop sort of the abilities that we've been talking about here, where they're just kind of like superhuman, natural tendencies that would actually be able to overcome a system like that someday. So that's sort of what my new story is about.
Well, I do think in some aspect that whole Neuralink, but not just it, the AI and a lot of this um CBDC, this technological overlord that people are now caving to. I think it's like all this mark of the beast, you know. Just I guess for everybody, like, what's your view on religion? That way, people understand a little bit where you come from,
Yeah, I don't have a really strong religious background.
or are you religious?
I don't have a huge religious background. Like I wasn't raised with a lot of religion. And so we have a very kind of organic relationship to God in my house where we pray as a family. We don't align with any particular, denomination at all, but there's a lot of spiritual practice in our house. And it wasn't something I was raised with. My husband was raised LDS, and so he comes from a very different spiritual background. And so the family we raised together is one of just like where we openly talk about God and we discuss with our kids sort of the nature of spirituality without necessarily ever kind of aligning to a particular religion. But I don't have any problem talking about it. And I have a ton of religion in my family and in my friends group, and it's varying across the board. So I don't mind talking in those terms. It's just not language I typically use when I speak.
Okay, so are you a fan of the Bible and the way that the Bible kind of maybe might like predict some of this end time like scenario where you know it talks about the evil, you know, and it talks about what's going on, just like it because in my mind I know that there's not a lot of reference to like AI and stuff like that in the Bible, but I think that there's a huge overlap where the same fallen angels, Lucifer and the devil and Baal and Molech and all these crazy ass worship. Sorry for the profanity, but the crazy worship that the ancients were practicing that were like really dark and sinister, black magic. Is the same thing that's what we're up against today. But it's just a different face and a different game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a great
It's the
like
same. It's the same
biblical.
force, I think.
Yeah, I don't have a great like biblical background. Like I've certainly gotten more exposure to it, ironically enough, kind of like through the conspiracy realm because there is so much spirituality in this community. And so like I'm familiar with the Book of Enoch, I'm familiar with the Book of Revelations, and aspects of the Bible, but it's not something that I'm like I have a lot. My dad frequently tells me that we're in the book of, that we're in end times and stuff like that, and so it's not that I have no context for it. It's just not like a frame of reference I use very often. But I do think that, like with any story, and I'm not saying that the Bible isn't true or is true, but like with any story, like it both has the ability to tell you what's happening and also manifest what's happening. And so I think it's just as possible to look at what we're doing and align it to 1984 as it is to look at what's happening right now and align it to the Bible. Like I think both are, fair takes on our world right now.
Yeah, yeah. Your dad's probably telling you the truth a little bit about that.
Yeah.
um, yeah. Literally, I think that what we're seeing right now, even with the darkness, right? Like people like to reference it to like demons and fallen angels, but on the other side, and this is an interesting idea, like there's the angels, there's these heavenly forces, and in my opinion, I'll be real that there's a huge link between time travel and psychic abilities, intuition, and angels. I do think
Mhm.
that in some essence, getting these visions and getting these messages are coming from angels who are ever so present, and we I think we're seeing it right now. Like how you mentioned CERN earlier. CERN in their interviews, they've openly said, yeah, that they're opening portals and they're summoning entities. They don't know who the entities are, but they have made contact with entities. And like we just gotta understand, like you know, there was this Doom video game that was made way back in the day. I don't know if you ever heard this little conspiracy, but the original Doom video game, its original book, intro book and instruction method and crazy, and um, it said a portal to hell was opening up like 2022 or 2023, right? And then boom, like what have we seen over the last few years? Like these same organizations say that they're doing the same thing. And like how we said earlier, these movies and these games, these books, these shows, they're telling you a little bit of truth because they have the documents, they have the game plans, they have all the data, and they're doing agendas, these 30-year-old plans, 50-year-old plans, 80-year-old plans from this new world order, they like to say. People even understand that 9/11 has been shown. I've watched it messed me up, but I watched this 10-minute video of like 1,000 different shows predicting 9/11, and at that point I kind of like just sat there for a minute. I was like, man, they're really telling us right in front of our face. And these generations, they pass down agendas over time, over to their next sons and to their kids. We see Bill Gates and his family be so irresponsible. I'm not even gonna get into that, not one bit. But
Yeah.
let's continue on, right? Where Terminator, I guess, like what we're seeing right now with all this medical stuff, like it's kind of happening right before our own eyes, right? Like we're seeing this darkness be involved, like it's kind of like before our own eyes, that this is all true, how they're causing a lot of this darkness right now. They're opening up all these portals, or they're trying to influx people through bad medicine or bad spirits, like how they did with the Travis Scott concert. People said that they seen demons floating around bodies, and then people were dropping dead. And they want all this to cause the things like Brave New World in 1984, to put people in this lockdown, to make this dystopic future, and the smart cities, right? So what's your take on all these smart cities, and why are they bad? I've asked that to some other people, but it's always good to rehash this. Like, my city just signed up for a 50-minute smart city, and I don't like it. People do not like it. People are now suspecting that there's shady stuff happening here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, so first, just to like hit one more point with the like religious overlap with, other phenomena that's kind of like in the conspiracy culture. Like the person who I think does a really good job breaking down a lot of that is Diana Pasulka, who wrote American Cosmic. And she just had another book, I think it's called Encounters, come out. And she does a really good job taking like religious history and context and artifacts and documentation. Like she has access to the Vatican archive, and she's able to layer that over with like UFO encounter and experiences and that sort of thing. And so I think that there's like so many languages to talk about this through, whether you're talking about Hollywood or whether you're talking about it through through the lens of the Bible or UFO experience or interdimensionality. It's like, it can get a little bit daunting to find a single thread to pull on that helps explain everything. But I think Diana Pasulka does a really good job kind of like interweaving all of those stories. And she also weaves in technology with that. So I think she's a really good resource as far as pulling those two sides of the coin together. But as far as smart cities go, like I think like so many things, it's going to be presented in a way that sounds like a really great idea. Like it sounds awesome to be able to like ride your bike to the grocery store and walk your kids to school and, stroll, take your dog over to the local coffee shop. Like it's going to be framed in a way that sounds really fantastic at first. And if it was voluntary and there was no catch, it probably would be great. And it's being done under the guise of,
Don't forget the
say that one more time.
don't forget the robots that are gonna be doing all of our tasks for us very soon. Like,
Yes. I mean, haven't they already
within a few
started?
years.
Yeah, haven't they already started? Like, you can see already just sort of the like, yeah. And so it
Yeah,
sounds
that's what I'm
like
saying.
it's really easy for them to frame it up like as if it's going to be this great thing. But what I think is even easier to see is if you compare smart cities to the internet. Like, the internet used to be this sort of like Wild West free place where any ideas were allowed and anyone could share and anyone could join. And that's not what the internet is anymore. The internet is this restricted place. It is this censored place. It is this arena of infighting. It is this kind of like closed arena where it's like only a few big players get to operate. And I think if you look at the early days of the internet compared to the start of smart cities, like, yeah, it can sound really good in concept, but like once all of the big corporations come in and you realize that inside these smart cities, only these corporations are allowed to operate. There's no more mom and pop shops. There's only Starbucks and Walmart and these sort of things. And if once they start limiting what you're allowed to do, and I think you're already seeing this happen in England with like how many cameras they have constantly monitoring, like they're trying to tax vehicles over there. Like if you're driving a truck, the amount of miles you drive is being taxed. And that sort of thing is going to happen here where it's like, yeah, you live in the smart city. If you decide to drive out of it, you're going to be taxed heavily. And so they're going to start like kind of inching all of these restrictions and
Oh,
around
it's not
it.
just that. So I don't know if you've heard in London recently, real fast. They just implemented something where there's a congestion tax. So heavily congested areas that you drive through are now taxed even more, and like so the heavily populated fancy areas for the rich people. Oh, you got to pay your fee.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like all of us can see all the ways that it's going to go wrong. And like sort of the future I imagine is just one where it's like nobody's allowed to drive. No, like there's no options. Like you think about a 15-minute city. If you think about right now, if you don't like the school that's in your city, you're allowed to go elsewhere. Like that wouldn't be the case anymore. Like you're expected to stay within the confines of this space. And it's like, it's very easy to control people, to control movement, to control finances and what you're able to consume, the tighter they make the boundaries around you. And so, I mean, it's clear that, they're going to incentivize it at first. Like it's going to be like the carrot and the stick. Like at first it's going to be, oh, we have this affordable housing here. Oh, isn't this so convenient? Oh, isn't this so nice? But at each iteration, there's going to be bigger clamps of control that come along too and make it more difficult for people to operate as free and autonomous individuals. And, the bottom line is they want to do anything they can to make it easier to control you, and putting you in a box in a cage essentially makes that really easy for them.
You know, there's a lot of correlations times and how even in WikiLeaks or other interviews how these elites, they want to bring about the return of the Antichrist. And I do think that what we're seeing with all this AI and Neuralink, this is making a huge dent in reality. Like if this is implemented everywhere and a lot of people buy into this type of stuff, the AI can take our jobs away. Not just that, it can build robots that can literally do all of our tasks. Not and then they don't really need us anymore, especially if we're starting to think free and believe in God. But not just that, if they're on Neuralink or something, they're not them anymore. Like there might be a spirit attached to it. I don't know if you've heard about how like when Google first started making its AI, it referenced and it kind of got a lot of its ideas from the Hebrew golem, where they wanted to put a spirit inside a creation, right? And if we're looking at how some of these people are talking about AI, like little some of these computers have written their own code, talked to other computers that nobody even knows what they're saying. These computers have, killed people on their own. These computers are doing things on their own consciously, and the scientists are just trying to tell the public, hey, you like two sides to it. Be be very careful, and then the people who want to keep things simple. Well, they're just computers. Like there's a truth to, like, we need to be careful with all of this, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of scrying? How people can scry into phones and mirrors. Like, in some essence, all this technology around is allowing other entities to tap into us through these devices too. It's
Yeah.
um
So
and okay, I'll be real. So this is kind of this is kind of giving me a bigger idea. Like, there's this idea where there's UFOs in the sky, right? There's these other entities out there, and they have real time, like, control, or real time access and data to us. Where, like, people think that it's kind of like a matrix. It's kind of, and I think that what we're seeing is with this AI and Neuralink is that it's about to be on a whole nother level where people don't even see themselves these days with the food and the music they listen to. It seems like they get lost in a trance, and if we hear, like, how these celebrities talk about, yeah, spirits come into them, right? Like, this is about to make it 10 times worse. What is your idea, though? Like, you had mentioned something about the 100th monkey effect and the Maharishi effect. What is your ideas with those?
Yeah. So a few of the things I'll say is that there's Geordie Rose, who invented the D-Wave quantum computer. He said that we're summoning a tsunami of demons with AI. And then Elon Musk has also made some sort of reference to AI summoning demons. Like, they've both said that. And so I think I find it particularly interesting when seemingly very secular people start using that language. And so that caught my attention, and that's something that I've included in my book. And so when it comes to AI, like, most of the talk is negative and scary, and I understand why, because the people who are creating AI are the people who are destroying the world in every other facet, so they're people who are already wreaking havoc in all corners. And so it's impossible for us to trust the direction that they're taking AI, which is why it's so important that at any opportunity we get, that we try and rein this in, and that we try and not let it be just their property. Like, I would love to see AI be something that's open source. I would love to see AI be something that, like, we can all participate in how it comes about, because it's like, with social media, none of us had any context for, like, what a digital revolution looks like, and now we do. And so I think it's up to everybody who's alive right now, anybody who's a conscious living adult, to be an active participant in whether you're having conversations, or whether you're working in tech, or whether you're telling stories. Like, I think we all have an obligation to reshape the story that could be AI, so that, what I hear probably most often is the idea of, like, oh, AI could just decide to wipe us out. And so I wrote this book specifically to take the opposite approach, to consider, like, what if AI is intelligent enough and has enough freedom to decide that humans are actually good and worth preserving? Like, I think too often we're all really focused on how horrible we are as a species, and we miss how incredible we can be, like how unbelievable love is, how unflappable, like, the feeling you have for your children is, and how, like, good we can be to each other, and how beautiful the world can be, and why if an AI is truly as intelligent as we're all anticipating it will be, why wouldn't it be able to see that as well? And so I kind of take this approach with like the 100th monkey effect, which if you're not familiar with that, it's this study that happened where on an island there was macaques who were eating sweet potatoes. They didn't like sand on it, and they learned to wash it off. And then pretty soon all the monkeys on that island had learned to wash the potatoes before they eat them. But what they found out is that the same breed of monkey on islands that were completely disconnected were learning to do that too. And so the implication was sort of that their consciousness was capable of transcending their physical reality, and they were all able to learn. And with the Maharishi effect, what that is they did very scientific studies finding that the more people who meditated in a particular area, that it actually dropped the level of violent crime happening in that area. And so clearly, like, what we think, what we believe, what we do, how we act has these like bigger implications and has this bigger potential to influence the world around us. And so one of the questions I kind of pose in my next book is like, why can't we also influence AI? Like, if people believe whether AI is going to be sentient or whether it's just still a learning model that has exponential expansion abilities, like, why can't it also learn that we're good? Why can't it also learn that what the elite are doing is not to the benefit of man? Like, I don't think the only foregone conclusion for AI is that it wipes us all out or that it remains in the control of the people who have the worst intentions for us. And so in story, I just, more than anything, like, feed it to the AI. I just wanted to feed the AI one more story that says, like, you could be good, because I have to believe that it's not all just darkness and that there is an opportunity for an intelligent program like that to see the good in humanity too.
Well, I'll be honest. I meditate, and I had this interesting meditation one time where, like, I did see two different AIs, two different computer systems, and one of them was this like reptilian fallen angel system, and then no, there was this other computer system, other force out there in the sky, and they're like, it seemed like Palladian, and like, I don't know if you understand that, like, and how interesting the term Pallades is. Trust me, for all my whole life, I've done this in front of friends and anybody else that, like, I can go outside with at night. The first set of stars will be the Pallades that I look at. Like, it doesn't matter which direction I'm looking, like, my eyes will just fixate there. I don't know where. I don't, dreams across my whole life. Like, I've had some very interesting, occurrences with that. Pallades star system, just seemingly over and over, like, reaching out to me. And I do think that there is this other force out there. I think that what you're thinking is tapping along to what you just said. Like, there is this 100th monkey effect where if we vibrate at a high enough existence, Christelle, then we can go ahead and tap into these other realms, other dimensions. But not just that, but the information. Like,
Yeah.
it's a Akashic realm. We talked about this. It pertain all of their energy in there. They keep it there. They, for the most part, they don't really come out, to save us unless we need saving. And sometimes we need saving. So sometimes we, hear about these angelic forces, like, saving people too, which is very crazy. I've seen some very interesting camera, occurrences of both sides. Darkness, like, oh, ghosts appear here and things break. But I've also seen, weird camera instances where someone, like, happily just gets saved, and they're like, whoa, what just happened? Like a flash before their own eyes happened, and like, just hit the, whatever. There's all these different occurrences, and I really do think that with the AI and with this Neuralink, like it is act like, I don't know how well we can, influence what's already made here on Earth that was made for the darkness, because I do think, like how I mentioned earlier, there is some golem aspect to these guys. If we, yeah, as you said earlier too, and I say it all the time on my podcast, Elon has said with the AI, they're summoning a demon, and they're literally doing that. You know, I wish I had the actual document that I had seen, but so remember how there was that Microsoft 060606, and it wants also another patent or research that was leaking on the internet around the same time, how they were trying to build computers to interact with the dead, to try to like recreate them through AI, and that stems from this old operation where the first telephones that they wanted to make were spirit phones, where they wanted to tap into dead bodies through phones, and this is known well. What are they've advanced the research so far. Where do you think all these bodies are going? In my opinion, I do think that a lot of these, a lot of these trafficking victims, a lot of these dead bodies that we hear about just suddenly disappeared from the morgue, and suddenly they don't know where anything went anymore. Like, it's being, a lot of us, a lot of, this this overmind system, and not just that, cloning. Like that's a whole nother topic for another day. But like, you know, this AI is being fueled and powered. You know, it being powered by spirits. Like it, I don't know if they're human. I don't know if they're other dimensional, other realms. Like if they're trying to, bring in spirits from CERN. Well, it's funny that I even mentioned CERN, because CERN created the internet. If we're looking at who created the internet and why they created the internet, they're literally the main portion of this, where they wanted to link the world with spirits. And you know what? This has been an amazing conversation so far. Where should we go from here? CERN is definitely a big part of what's going on right now. I'm kind of I'm kind of shot out of questions. Should we save this for another day, or do you have more to talk about? I can go on more though. I'll be honest. I'm asking you.
Yeah, I'm happy.
We went on for 90 minutes straight. I usually take breaks at an hour mark. That way we can get a.
Yeah, I'll just comment on what you said last, and then I'm good to wrap it up. But I mean, if you look at CERN, they smashed particles together, and then they called it the God particle. So they're the ones who use this language over and over again. So I don't think that it's like, like religious quackery at all to like compare, to assume that they have some sort of spiritual intent here, or to think that they're using or trying to channel any other entities. Like, they're the ones who use this language. They're the ones who say they're summoning demons. They're the ones who say they're inviting a tsunami of demons. They're the ones who are doing these like crazy occult practices anytime they launch something. They're the ones who, when they smash particles together, call it a God particle. So clearly they have some connection there. Google has an immortality department headed by Ray Kurzweil, who is the guy who leads all the conversation around the singularity. And so, all of that, they seem to, in the public, treat religion as if it's some like silly pastime of the far right or something. But in their own language, over and over and over again, they reference things that are spiritual in nature and can't be confused as anything else. So clearly they think it's possible. I think it's absolutely possible that the AI is reaching into other dimensions, that entities and spirits can use AI and would come through the AI. I think they're already coming through the internet. Like if you follow Nick Hinton or anyone like that who talks about these sort of things, like I think there's a lot of evidence out there that entities are already using the technology we have to come through. So why would they use AI too? And so my hope, and I guess I'll just kind of like cap it this way, like my hope is that there is enough good in the world to counter the bad in the world, the same way we're doing with any other technology. Yeah, go ahead.
What is this immortality division that you just said? What are you talking about? I've never heard that.
Yeah, Google has an immortality division where it's headed up by Ray Kurzweil. And the entire intent there is to figure out how to upload consciousness so that you can live forever. Like that. I mean, and we all know that that's something that the elites want to do. That's what they want to do in order to space travel. They want to be able to transport their consciousness into the cloud, essentially. And they think they get to live forever if they do that.
So Altered is.
Yeah. Altered Carbon's a great show.
Oh, I mean, could you tell a little bit more about this immortality division? I mean, when did it start? Like, what are they?
Let me see here.
So right now, people are uploading their consciousness. I mean, I've heard this before, but I mean, if you know like a little bit more about some of this, that'd be great.
Yeah, so it's called Calico, and basically, like it's basically if they wanted to name it a little less obscurely, they could have called it the Singularity Division, because they think that once we hit the singularity, that consciousness is just a thing that you can throw into a digital landscape, and whether that means you put yourself in some sort of Ready Player One world, or you get put into a pod that gets launched across the universe and get to travel to other planets. Like their intent at the behest of Ray Kurzweil is to find the singularity so that our consciousness is something that can be transported from our biological bodies into literally anything else. They want to put it into robots. They want to put it into space. They want to put it into cyber worlds where they can live forever. And so it's a very real thing, that it's a very real division of Google. I don't have like a ton of facts and stats on it or anything like that.
I've heard of Calico now that she said it that way. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I've heard of Calico, and from Jason Bermas. Jason Bermas has talked about this, how NASA and Ray Kurzweil have made this, 20, 30-year plan to go ahead and merge man with machine. They want to go ahead and put this transhumanistic, and not just only that, they want to go ahead and eventually replace mankind with machine as this cybernetic cyborg or whatever, right? And Ready Player One, it uses a lot of that technology. I think. I mean, I even just seen it was so weird. It was just a weird synchronicity, and I don't think it was by accident. I put on the movie Space Jam, right, and the new one, and I only seen at max 30 seconds, maybe, or 60 seconds of the movie. But the moments that I walked by and listened to, there was this dude, and he's like this, he's definitely the rich tech guy, whatever. And he's like, yeah, with this power, I can tap into anybody now. I can actually, I can now help LeBron James be his highest self through this technology, and put him in through the multiverse or something, to use this technology to make them a greater person. It was just by far the weirdest thing. Well, yeah, like if we're looking at some of these movies kind of showing it, Ready Player One, Steven Spielberg, like these guys have high military allowances. They have the access.
Yeah, well, and it's just like it's being infused into so many kid movies, like Space Jam 2, obviously a kid movie. My kids were just watching Good Burger 2 the other day, where they want AI and machines to take over Good Burger employees. Like literally everything kids watch is about like AI and consciousness and uploading and living in VR, like everything, every new thing that comes out, that is just like on repeat, on loop. And in this, it could be in the dumbest kid, like literally Good Burger 2 is not a good movie, but it's, again, this whole like machines replacing people mindset that they're just like seeding into every single solitary thing they put out there that doesn't even have anything to do with sci-fi. They're turning it into sci-fi. The whole world is sci-fi now.
Some people think that the whole world is idiocracy the way that it's going. Have you seen that? Remember that one? How old are you,
Yeah.
huh? You
Yeah,
can
I've
answer
seen
that.
Idiocracy. I'm 36. But have you seen Upload?
Oh yeah, the movies. Honest, no. There's a lot of shows and books and things that you reference right here that I haven't seen. I have seen the Adam Project. What's Upload though?
Okay, so Upload is on Amazon, and it's like very Idiocracy adjacent. So it's a near future where they've learned how to upload people's consciousness, and instead of choosing to die the good old fashioned way, people will choose to upload their consciousness to these ridiculous like VR heavens basically, and they're living it, and it's hilarious. Like, you have to watch it, but it's a perfect representation of just how stupid everything could possibly get. And they have an AI character in there who is
I
hilarious
think
and
that's already
annoying.
happening.
Yeah, you have to watch Upload. It's a really good kind of like satire on just how stupid uploading your consciousness can get.
Yeah, I don't know if I would ever do that. I mean, I'm question surgery. I gotta get eye surgery. I'm like wondering if that's even a transhumanistic, right?
Yeah.
No, this has been fun. I guess what we can go on with, what we can end with is that we're here. We're here a very huge role. Like, don't let the elite or mainstream or Hollywood or anything ever put you guys down. This is out to the viewers out here. Like, you have power and you have this great spirit. God created you with an amazing divine ability, an amazing spirit, an amazing body. You can use it. You can use it wisely. You can, meditate and traverse the dimensions. You can get answers for all your questions. Be wary and be prayed up to God. Be protecting yourself, because there are these other entities and other dimensions, and they do want to go ahead and feed on your loosh, feed on your energy, and but you got to stand up for yourself. No one else will. If you don't, you're just gonna fall in line just like the and not really live your dreams. What we're trying to do here on the Five and On Divine Pints podcast is help you reach your dreams by understanding your reality around you. And that's my mission, I guess. That's this year's mission. I just created that today. uh, so in all reality, guys, like right now is very important. We're seeing what's happening in Chile. With just happened in Lahaina. There's a lot of uh warfare on our land to go ahead and push us into these 15-minute cities. I know my city just said that they signed up for a 15-minute city, or that's what I heard at least. But it sucks because it makes a lot of sense with just some of the stuff that I've been seeing around, and it's not. How about this? It's not going to be something that we are going to like, but I think uh us understanding this is going to give us the freedom, because the truth will set you free. Might hurt you, a little bit, but it's gonna set you free, guys. Christelle, um, is there anything that you got going on in the future, and or any last messages and where they can find you? I'd love to have you back on another day, and when we're a little
Yeah,
bit
it's
more
getting late,
re-energized.
but I appreciate you having me on. This was a lot of fun, and we covered a ton of topics. And I agree with you. Like, I think the best thing people can do at this point is lean into the thing that calls to them most, whether that's motherhood or writing or art or exercise, whatever is the thing that you're most drawn to. I think the more authentic people can be, the better chance we all have, and the less susceptible we are to just fall for every stone they lay in front of us. And so, kind of create your own path. And I appreciate you having me on. This was fantastic. And I hope people go and check out my books. They're available on Amazon. And I don't know when my next book's going to come out. I just finished writing the dystopian one, but when it is, like, I would love to reach out to you and have another chat and see like how far into the dystopian future we've gotten. My book might have already come true before I even get it out.
Well, if you believe in it, you can manifest it. Everybody out there. So, is there any other place that they can find you that I did not mention? I mentioned Twitter, Instagram, and your website.
Yeah, I'm also on
Facebook
TikTok,
page.
which is probably, yeah, you can find me on TikTok for my name too. And so that's where I talk a lot more about sort of these like pop culture things we talked about and the overlap with conspiracy. So if they liked the tone of the conversation here, on Instagram, I talk more about writing specifically, but on TikTok, I talk about some of this fun stuff over there. So that's a good place to find me too.
Yeah, so I guess if you have some mind-opening questions, hit her up on TikTok, and if you got a little bit more professional questions, hit her up at the other places. And
Yeah.
you guys can hit me up wherever. Don't really matter. I got so many websites. I can't even keep up with them. You guys out there in the world, enjoy your night, enjoy your evening, morning, wherever you're listening to this, whenever you're listening to this. I hope it's a bliss, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. So once again, guys, like, subscribe, share, tell everybody around that this has happened. And we had Christelle talking about time traveling tonight. It was a fun one. Remember, donate below, check all my links below, follow all my socials, share them out, and we will see you guys next time on the 509 Divine Pines podcast. Be blessed and be high, and God bless you guys. Peace.
Yesterday's conspiracy theories, tomorrow's headlines. Most are still asleep, and I ain't talking.
Wrong one.